Don't say any F's and stuff.
Let's go.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
Blazing the steel. Bring the heat. Mix it non-stop. With the hottest DJ.
I'm your host, Joshua Diaz.
Non-stop.
There is no investigation. This boy has...
There is not, really? This to me.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
But I have to put her on the side and worry about
I'm gonna do what I gotta do for me and my boys and my kids.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
There is no investigation. This boy
There
has...
is not, really? This to me. Right. Idiot.
I've done my best. It's hard, that's real tough.
But I have to put her on the side and worry about the boys.
I'm gonna do what I gotta do for me and my boys and my kids.
What's up?
Don't say any F's and stuff.
Live from the NBD Production Studios, you're in the lab with your host, Joshua Diaz. That's me.
There is no investigation. This boy
There
has...
is not, really? This to me. But I have to put her on the side and worry about the boys.
Good evening. How is everybody? Good to see you. Good to be here. Happy Sunday.
There is no investigation.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
Happy Sunday evening. Good to see you. Good to be here. Before we get into tonight's topic, there were a couple of other things that I wanted to address first, and that is there's the situation with the 6-year-old boy who shot his teacher. I believe the teacher is in critical condition still. The police say that it's no accident, that this boy intended to do this. 6-year-old boy intended to do this. I was going to talk about it a little bit yesterday, but it's just, it's hard to process that kind of stuff. And I don't even know if I have a take on it, other than it's the oddest, strangest, saddest thing. And there's really, there's really no way to really look at that other than just, this is just, 6 years old. 6 years old. And, wow. Honestly, like it kind of leaves you speechless. It leaves you stunned. 858-299-2504 is the number to call. But it leaves you speechless. It's, I don't know. I don't have anything enlightening to say about it. I don't have any comforting words. I've thought about it, and, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about that. It's just truly terrible. I don't understand. First of all, I don't understand what could be going through a 6-year-old's mind to make him think that that was an acceptable solution to any problem. I mean, we're not talking about a child throwing a fit. We're not talking about a tantrum, breaking windows. I mean, I have extreme trouble believing that this young man, this little boy, I have trouble believing that he even understands the concept of life and death. Now, trust me, that is not an excuse for anything that he's done. I'm just baffled by it. Maybe, I believe it's about kindergarten age, first grade. Okay. I'm blown away by it. I am completely blown away. This poor teacher. Let me see here. Bring it up. Yeah. So in the Guardian, if you, I don't really know that much about the Guardian, but let me show you here. So it says, Virginia shooting of a teacher by a 6-year-old, not accidental, authorities say. Boy in custody after shooting wounds teacher in abdomen. Wounds. What the heck? Boy in custody after okay, whatever. Teaching in. So he shot her in the abdomen during an altercation. I don't know how old the teacher. 20. So she's 25. Wow. The apparently deliberate shooting of a Virginia school teacher by a gun-carrying 6-year-old pupil has shocked many across the United States, causing outrage and horror even in a country long used to regular school shootings that are rare elsewhere in the world. Okay, we get it. Authorities have not described the exact circumstances of the shooting, nor how they believe the boy. And you know what? And we'll probably never know any details about this because of his age. I don't even know if he can. I don't even know if they can charge him with something. It is such a crazy story. And one that I have been paying attention to, and just really, really strange. Really strange, really odd. And then there was one more thing. But where is this? Missing mother. And I can't find this one, but I can't find the lady's name. But there was a lady that she's been missing now since New Year's. Anna Walsh. Sorry. There we go. Anna Walsh. I have no idea what that is. What is that? What's that sound? You gotta be kidding me. I really don't know what that is. It's interesting. Good Lord. That was not me. Hey, Peyton, did you leave something on in the back there, please? Can you check? What's going on back there?
Rhinoceros.
Who are you listening to? Oh, get off of there. Come on. Why do you do that? That's hilarious. No, it's not. Let's go ahead and listen.
It seems likely that
we're gonna talk a bit about obviously the Moscow, Idaho murders, and I think I maybe have one more after this show that I have put together and thought about that I want to, discuss, and then I'm back. I've been working on the Summer Wells project for a while now, and a lot of my attention is going back into that, but I work on it every day periodically. And so that's where a lot of my focus is going to be. And hopefully I'll keep doing live shows as much as possible, because I know that, they're entertaining. They're fun. Let me see. I enjoy them, and that's all that matters. Let's read here. Authorities in Massachusetts are working around the clock to search for a mother of of 3 young children missing since New Year's Day, police said. Anna Walsh was last seen by a family member at her home in Cohasset around 4:05 a.m. January 1st. Chief William Quigley said in a press conference, the department tweeted Saturday that the search efforts are continuing. So here's the thing, is that apparently they've stopped the ground search for her, and I've heard that the husband has been arrested for lying or I guess it would be leading investigators astray. It is basically the long and short of it, which is just the first in many steps, and obviously never a good sign. Ever. It's never a good sign, obviously. Let me see here. Love the show. You and Peyton make a good duo. No, we don't. But thank you. We don't make a good duo at all. Everybody's like, you're so mean to him. No, I'm not. Trust me, I'm not. Kid's got it. Kid's got it made in the shade. Let me see. So, that is a... Don't play music again when I'm not ready. Okay, here it is. We'll just show the world how slow the internet is. Blah, blah, blah. Come on. This is a ton of fun. It really is. Husband of missing Massachusetts mom arrested for misleading cops. So he's lying to the investigators. Obviously, lying to investigators while your wife is missing is probably a terrible, terrible thing. First thoughts are, the husband of missing Massachusetts mom was taken into custody Sunday in connection with her disappearance over a week after the woman vanished. Brian Walsh was arrested and charged with misleading police 7 days after his wife, Anna failed to board her plane to Washington, D.C., according to the Norfolk Country District's Attorney's Office. Walsh's gray Volvo minivan was also apparently taken as evidence. Anna is it must be Anna. Anna, a real estate agent and mom of 3, disappeared after she hopped in an Uber on New Year's Day, bound for Logan International Airport in Boston. During the course of the investigation, police developed probable cause and believed that her husband, Brian Walsh, had committed the crime of misleading police investigators. So that's kind of just the first step. That's the first step. Hey, buddy, guess what? You're arrested for lying to us, which, by the way, and I do not, obviously the Chatham County did a fantastic job, but I did always kind of wonder that, and it seems like some people or organizations, law enforcement organizations, tend to do that, and then some don't. I think it's a great idea to put pressure on them, but I let investigators do their thing, and I try not to be overly critical because, I don't know anything about that stuff. Let's see. Anna, a real estate agent and mom of 3, disappeared after she hopped in an Uber on New Year's Day bound for Logan International Airport. During the course of that investigation, police, probable cause of Brian, he's committed. Okay, he misled investigators. Brian Walsh reported Anna missing 3 days after she disappeared. So he's, I would assume, probably hiding her or hid her body or whatever. I don't know that, but that's just my gut feeling. She ordered a ride to the airport last Sunday at 4 a.m., but never made it on the plane, police said. A friend said Anna had been traveling to Washington, D.C. for a real estate job. Honestly, I'm scared, really scared, friend Alyssa Kirby said. Oh, my God. It's really weird. Whenever you suspect somebody of doing something terrible, you really do look at everybody a little different. So, like, you look at this guy and you're going, oh, my God. You see him on the street and you're probably like, oh, who cares? Like, I mean, the hair's a dead giveaway, but is this his mugshot? Is this his mugshot for real? That's not a mugshot, is it? I don't know. Picture looked like it was taken in the 70s, yeah. Studio 51. I mean, does anybody know? And by the way, here we go again. I mean, you go, oh, look at this. Ugh. And then you're like, oh, wow, she's really pretty. Ugh. Pretty creature. And you probably treated her like crap. I don't know. I'm just assuming. I don't know anything about these, but like, it's like, ugh. Okay, well, I'm glad that that's not a mugshot. What's up with all these Brians? Brian's is anybody familiar with Chad names? Like have you ever, dude, that dude's such a Chad. Like I've noticed an uptick in Chads lately. And it's like Chad, Brad, let's see. What are some other dummy, like, it's like the fraternity guy, the Chads, He looks kind of like a Chad, like a dork, like he's a Chad. He's Chadding out, dude. But anyway, yeah, he does look like a douche canoe. But here's the thing: a fire broke out at the family's former home on Jerusalem Road in Cohasset on Friday. The fire was accidental, officials reported. How could you even know that? That doesn't sound very accidental, but okay, we'll take their word for it. Ned, Fred. What do you mean, network issues detected? It's just, save me from myself. But I can't. Okay, I'll just, keep going. Anyway, Anna is described as 5'2", 2 inches tall, 115 pounds. She has brown hair, brown eyes, olive complexion, and speaks with an Eastern European accent. So, please, oh please, if I get, and forgive me, but I do really get jaded about these cases, because you're just going like, how could this happen? Who did this? And most of the time they're not found. It's just a terrible, terrible thing. So anyway, we'll be following that case as well. Let me see here. All right, let's take a listen. And I want to talk about some of the guilty behavior of Mr. Buttburger.
Maybe they were sleeping.
I already don't like him. Like, guilty or not, like, he's a piece. And I'm going to go with guilty. Like, it's not a court of law, so, it's my opinion. Anybody that takes trash out with gloves and throws them in their neighbor's trash can is obviously hiding something.
That was the narrative about the 4 college students killed in the King Road home that we heard for weeks. But the new arrest affidavit paints a very different story. A night that had everyone in their rooms or asleep much later at 4 a.m., except for Xana, who ordered food on DoorDash. After that, a surviving roommate notes a series of sounds that woke her up. What she thought was Kaylee playing with her dog. The words, "There's someone here," crying from Xana's room, and a male voice saying something like, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." And then the most shocking of them all. According to the affidavit, the surviving roommate opens the door and sees what appears to be the killer, clad in black clothing with a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose, walking towards her. She describes him as not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows, and stood in a frozen shock phase as he walked past her and back out the sliding glass door. She then locked herself in her room. 911 was not called until 11:58 that morning.
But still, this interesting question of she didn't call the police.
But it raises a question as what was happening in that period of time.
Obviously, you'd like to call right away. So you can have an immediate response and get on it. But unfortunately, we don't live in an ideal world.
Investigators at the scene found 2 traces of a possible suspect, a shoe print just outside the door of the surviving roommate's bedroom, and a knife sheath that had K-Bar and USMC on it. A single source of male DNA was also found on the button snap.
A very subtle finding, if you will, on the sheath to find his connection there, find the DNA, and I think that's the money.
As investigators scoured the neighborhood for cameras and clues, a car stuck out, the white Hyundai Elantra. It's the same car investigators asked for information about over and over again, insisting they wanted to speak to the occupants inside.
Do you believe that the killer was in that car?
We think that they were in the immediate area of the house, of the residence.
What we didn't know at the time was investigators knew it was Brian Kohberger's car by November 29th.
He was under surveillance, I think, from the time that they realized that this is going to be where the evidence is leading them to.
On December 23rd, they got a search warrant for his cell phone records.
The data that is generated by a cell phone is quite alarming.
Those records put Kohberger near the crime scene at least 12 times before the murders. It's also in the area in the early morning hours of the crime and right after. Investigators believe the phone may have been turned off or in airplane mode in between. We believe that he fled the scene according to the probable cause affidavit. They described the route that they believe he took based on surveillance video and just a knowledge of the area. This is the house where the murders happened. We believe he came out the back door and then left in this direction. You can see on this map, police say Kohberger went way out of the way to get back to his home in Pullman, going down a country road and making it to his apartment around 5:30 a.m. 4.5 hours later, Kohberger's phone is near the Moscow house again from 9:12 to 9:21 a.m. and back home in Pullman by about 9:32. Later that day, there is another 3-hour window where the phone was out of service again. Investigators say that is consistent with the same location as the phone after the murders, perhaps retracing his steps one last time. And between November 29th and November 23rd, authorities surveilled Kohberger's car using license plate readers and cameras. And they got even more information during 2 traffic stops in Indiana on December 15th when Kohberger and his father were pulled over.
Hey, you guys remember when everybody was talking about this case going cold? Professional hitmen, Dexter, and incompetent police work. Does anybody remember any of that? Seems so distant, but yet not.
For minor infractions.
This case is going cold. The Moscow police can't handle it.
Where are you headed? Well, we coming from WSU.
When investigators confirmed Kohberger's car was in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania.
I like what he says. Yeah, we're coming from WSU, and then Kohberger's like balls just sucked up into his stomach.
Pennsylvania, things.
Pardon my Latin.
Escalated on December.
I know, like I've never been in that quite situation, but like, you ever been in a situation where like, you know, you're busted, and then you like somebody says something you don't want them to say, and you go, your stomach kind of goes.
December 27th, agents
don't say
recovered trash from the Kohberger family home and sent it to the Idaho State Crime Lab for testing. It came back as a profile matching the DNA.
You guys, I'm scared that this case is gonna go cold. I'm terrified of it.
Of Kohberger's biological father, a match for the DNA left on the.
Yeah, somebody said the cartel. I read. By the way, never read just like random blogs. It's not good. But I read that some dude was like, they're on the hunt for some serial killer in Canada, but like they're not really sure. And then I looked to see if like anybody else was covering it. It's like just some guy that like thinks somebody's a serial killer but has no evidence.
Knife sheath.
They have his DNA at the crime scene. They have his car in and around the crime scene. They have his phone not active around the crime scene. So all of those things work to put him there. But the essential question really is why?
Thank you for watching.
And that really is honestly the question. The question is why? And as I've stated before, motive to me, I'm not a big motive guy. I know a lot of people are, and I respect that. That's just not the way that my mind works. And I understand people want to know that there has to be a reason that he did this. There has, like, what? But say just by, I don't know. Say he wants to explain himself like, well, I got swerved by her, or yeeted. Is that what the kids say? Yeeted? Yeeted. I always forget the definition of yeeted, but I like that word. I just don't want to use it wrong. So let me see here. Yeeted meaning. Yeet is a slang word that functions broadly with the meaning to throw, but is especially used to emphasize forcefulness and lack of concern. You don't yeet something if you're worried that it might break. Okay, so yeet was the right word. Yeeted. I say swerved, but yeah, that's what I think happened. And I think that, who cares? There's not going to be a good excuse. So like I said, I'm not a motive guy, but let's talk about his guilty behavior, because he has a ton of guilty behavior. Now, you might say, look, cell phone tower pings aren't good evidence. Or, they can bounce back and forth from a 26-mile radius, or blah, blah, blah. Okay, that may be true. Maybe he did put his phone in airplane mode. Maybe he did do that. I'm sure he did. That takes a real friggin' genius to, figure that one out. But here's where it's like stupid. Okay, so he's in the general vicinity. We can say that just from his cell phone records. He's in the general vicinity. He circled the block. But you can't, but is it really him? Well, it's a white Hyundai Elantra circling the block at that time. Okay. I'm with you. I'm following you. Now we move on to something else. Well, now we have single source DNA on the little button of the sheath. Dare you to say sheath. Holy sheath. And okay, so we got single source DNA. We got him and we got a car that is, matches the description of his car. I don't know if they have a license plate or not. The car circles 3 times. His phone is pinging in areas that you would expect it not to be, especially at that time of night. And then you have the bushy eyebrowed man. So you have DNA, cell phone, video surveillance. Now you have him taking the trash out with rubber gloves, cleaning the car extensively. Probably used his eyebrows to do the carpet. And then throwing trash away with gloves on in his neighbors. Your neighbors, dude? Like they're not going to check the neighbors? Why wouldn't they check the neighbors? I don't know.
I want to bring in Kaylee's sister now, Olivia. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, Olivia. I remember from when we first started communicating, when all of this began, you told me that you believed that this was going to be a stranger who came into the house. And according to the police, you were right the way that all of this played out. But what did you think when you first learned that Brian Kohberger was the suspect?
I think we always presume, innocence. I don't think it really hit me until the affidavit was released and I was able to kind of read that and process that. And then you not only have a name and a face, but, the beginnings of a case against him.
You have been working so hard behind the scenes, and I don't think a lot of people realize that because in many ways your dad has sort of been the face of the family. But since the beginning, you've been digging into this and trying to find leads and sending things to the police. And you told me that, you didn't feel like you would be able to really grieve until there was an arrest made. Do you feel like now you're able to do that?
I think my family as well as myself are starting to get there. And it's kind of an odd time to do that, being that we still have such a long road ahead of us. But the relief that we all felt having a suspect in custody was, it was like, I can't even describe it. Like the weight of the world was lifted from our shoulders.
The court process now, though, that's, your dad has told me that can be overwhelming to think about, the fact that you guys are going to have to be in court. Do you plan to be at the hearings?
Yeah, every single one.
One thing back to the affidavit that I think
this is a terrible interview. Like I really feel bad for this family, and
I think a lot of people were surprised by was the fact that one of the roommates was awake when the killer walked by, and that the 911 call wasn't made until hours and hours later. Do you know any more about why that might be?
I don't have any other information for that.
So is she not bound by the gag order?
I do know Dylan is really young and she was probably really, really scared. And until we have any more information, I think everyone should stop passing judgments because you don't know what you would do in that situation.
Good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's people online, obviously, it's totally inappropriate at this point. And you're right. No one knows how they would handle a situation like that or what was really happening. We only know
no, Brian, you're completely wrong. I would say like 67% of people online know exactly how they'd handle it. Or at least that's what they would tell you, Brian. Keep up. That's your fault. All right.
It's in the probable cause so far. Is there anything you've learned that connects Kohberger to any of the victims here? Last I talked to your dad, he said the family was looking for connections, but there wasn't anything really apparent at this point.
Yeah, I think we're still going to keep looking. I've had a lot of people reach out with, Instagram posts or even Spotify or lots of connections that they've been able to find. And those are super valuable. All of those go over to, the Moscow Police Department as well as the Idaho State Police and the FBI, because nothing is insignificant at this point, and everything is being looked through.
There's this feeling that many have shared that perhaps
67%. It's an arbitrary number, but it seems to be like pretty accurate, right? 67%. 67%. I don't know. I didn't want to say 75. Everybody always goes like flat out 75, and that's very unimpressive.
perhaps Kohberger was watching the interviews, was in the Facebook groups, was on Twitter. Do you get a sense that that might be the case, that he was almost watching all of this as it played out?
I do. A lot of that comes from the fact that he had visited the home so many times before, late at night. And
by the way, Brian, being the excellent reporter that he is, he tries to get the soundbite from her and then says, but it's not really important. People need to lay off.
Early hours, he's presented this pattern of behavior. He went back to the home the morning of, before police had been called, I think to see if his circus, so to say, had started to unfold. And I think that he would not have been able to refrain from engaging with the online communities, the theories, the conspiracies, and everything in between.
How did you first find out, Olivia, that there was an arrest?
My mom actually told me. I had been staying at her house. Me and my husband were upstairs, and she came up the stairs. It was probably around 11 o'clock at night, the day before the arrest had been made. At the time, we didn't know what state, and we didn't even have a name. We just knew that a suspect was in custody.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com.
So, a much different tone now with her interviews, and the Consalves family seems like a very strong, tight-knit family, and I respect that a lot. It's just, it's so sad, it's so terrible. And but they ask those questions like, hey dude, do you think this, do you think that? I don't know, but what I do know is that this man, Bushy Brian, as we call him here in the lab, Bushy Brian, his full name's actually Bushy Brian Single Source DNA Kohberger the 17th. Because, that single source, don't forget the middle name, single source DNA. I don't think people, I do think a lot of people understand, but I don't know how many people really understand how damaging that is. Look, they're going to tie they're not only going to have physical evidence against Buttberger, but they're also going to have circumstantial evidence. It's going to be an entire encompassing sort of deal, it's gonna be different.
And now to chilling new details in the brutal stabbing deaths of 4 Idaho college students. The suspect, Brian Kohberger, is in custody facing 4 counts of first-degree murder and burglary charges. He has yet to enter a plea, and he's also due back in court this week. Prosecutors say he is the mass killer seen creeping out of the home that night by a surviving roommate. So many unanswered questions, including a motive for the brutal murders. Robert Sherman is on the ground in Moscow, Idaho, with reaction from the father of one of the victims, speaking exclusively to News Nation. Robert.
Good evening to you, Kelly. And a lot has changed here in the recent days. For weeks, we did not even have a suspect in this case. But now Brian Kohberger is formally charged with these 4 murders and is sitting in the Latah County Jail in custody here. But in an exclusive interview with our own Chris Cuomo,
let me grab this question really quick. Lab, I'm really curious now. Should any of the families be talking to the media now that there's a gag order, or would the gag order have to be specifically mentioned? So apparently, I'm not really keen to this, but it's for people that are investigating. I think that anybody that's involved, and I don't know. I've always been under the impression that not talking would probably help the investigation. They're asking them for details and all this stuff.
Father of,
I'm like I said, I'm always on the part of the fence, but I really don't want to tell or give unsolicited advice to the family and say, you guys need to now that there's an arrest made, fine. And I understood like the lashing out at law enforcement, so on and so forth. I get all of that. I get it. But I don't think that the families at this point would do anything to compromise the investigation, at least intentionally. But in my opinion, I would not.
Steve Gonsalves said when they thought about who this might be, someone like this, never even on their radar. Take a listen.
Is this the guy you imagined?
No, I thought he would be much more, bigger and more of a monster, obviously, and have those key looks of somebody who couldn't get along with girls, and this was like his only option or something. He just looked like a normal guy.
Kohberger was a PhD student at at Washington State University down the road in the Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology. And those who were his classmates tell us, yeah, at times he was a little weird, but nothing really out of the ordinary.
He was fairly outgoing. He was always trying to fit in, trying to make inroads. There's a little awkwardness there, but that's to be expected with a bunch of graduate students who are being crammed into a box and said, hey, these are your classmates now, get along.
There's still a lot that we don't know here in this case, Kelly, namely a motive. And it is possible that we're going to learn a bit more.
That guy has bushy eyebrows, too.
As this case progresses through the legal system, Brian Kohberger is set to be due back in court Thursday. Kelly?
All right. Great recap. Robert, thank you.
So so he's going back to court. Is this for a bond hearing? I would imagine it would be, but man, there can't be a chance that this guy's going to get bond, is there? He's not going to get bond. There's way too much evidence against him. I really think that the strength of evidence has to come into play when they're talking about that that aspect of it, So, golly, not that I think, and if they give him a bond, it'll be like the one that Richard Allen got, like the 20 million whatever one. And let's take a listen to one more. This is the former FBI special agent on Idaho on the Idaho suspect.
Found.
Let me see. Throw this up
convicted of these crimes.
For her perspective. And I'd like to welcome Jennifer Coffendorfer, former FBI agent, for her perspective on all of this. So, Jennifer, thank you for being here tonight.
Jennifer
We'll dive right
Coffendorfer.
in. Since the release of that probable cause affidavit, a lot more details have emerged, as we both know.
I love that last name, Coffendorfer.
Many of us, though, still wondering what was the motivation behind these murders. So, do you see a narrative emerging from these newly released details?
Yes, I do. I believe it was a true femicide situation. I think that he has.
That's a new one. I haven't heard. I've heard I don't even say it correctly. Familicide or something like that. I have not heard that.
Struggle.
Which would make sense since there's so many incels in the world now, so many angry humans, and I've just really noticed that men in general have become more angry. There's so many, especially guys my age or even just a little bit older and just a little bit younger, which would be like, I don't know why I had to say that because that would be around my age and a little older. Guys are like babies. Like they're just like little crybabies a lot of the time. It's just like really, quintessential, love me daddy, take care of me mommy. I don't want to eat out of any pots and pans that have ever been in the same room as meat. Yeah, just crap like that.
His whole life to really have acceptance if indeed Brian Kohberger is found convicted of these crimes. That's what we're seeing with his background. There were also other
Also, slobber knocker. I think like we could take down the. I like them, but the Christmas decorations are kind of out of season. Like it's almost summer.
Incidents that led up to this situation, even one at a bar where he was actually banned from the bar for his actions toward a female there. I think all of this speaks to possible, hatred toward women and something that just built up inside of him, and he lashed out. I
don't understand how people end up hating women like that. I mean, unless you're Mowgli and raised by wolves, I mean, you interact with. I mean, your mother does a lot of the raising, and in a lot of cases, and much further back, there was a time when men did not raise the children at all. They just kind of went to work and came home.
Wow. Well, the suspect, Brian Kohberger, has not yet entered a plea. As Robert mentioned, the defense received the judge's approval to preserve the crime scene for several more weeks. So what do you believe the defense is doing now to help build their case?
Well, they are poring over that probable cause affidavit, Kelly. They want to look at every single fact that was given there. They want to fact check it. They also want to look for any little holes. And there are some holes in that affidavit. Just the way it was written, there's certain things that don't line up. And they're going to be scouring that and find.
I'm gonna break something down for you guys here. I have a theory, and there's nothing scientific about it. It's just like, I think one day I took I was sick one day and I took some NyQuil. Actually, I took DayQuil at night and then realized I took DayQuil. Then I did some NyQuil, and then my mind was open, and the world really showed itself to me. But I do believe that there is an age of young men where they become a rudderless boat, you could say. And it's somewhere in between, 26, 26 and like 35. I don't know. Somewhere around there. And, they sort of start to get into their career or the end of college or so on and so forth. And they're kind of bouncing around, some, girlfriend to girlfriend, or, it's 2023, boyfriend to boyfriend. And, they have no direction. And then they end up overly drinking, drugs, kids, guys that were just really, really normal. And I've experienced this a lot with, when I was when I had these young guys come work for me, and they were like 25, 26, like, we're going boating this weekend. Like, what's the move? And I'm like, I don't know, dude, you're 26, you're 27. You should probably start a family or something. No, me and the boys are going, boating, and then somebody gets drunk, and then they crash the boat, and then, somebody, so on and so forth. But yeah, I just really think that there's a lot, that rudderless sort of, whatever. And there's a lot of bitterness and anger and angst and this and that, and like I said, I've seen it. I've witnessed it. I've been bosses of these guys. They're strange, to say the least.
Issues with it. So that's what mainly they're going to be working on.
So one of the two surviving roommates saw the alleged killer walking out of the house that night. How important do you think she'll be to this case going forward?
I think she is important from the standpoint that nothing else that we have right now actually puts him there other than the sheath with the DNA. But this is an eyewitness that at least can say there was a figure there. He had bushy eyebrows, and that puts that male there in that sort of clothing. Remember, we don't have yet the evidence that has hopefully, possibly been found from those 4 search warrants. And if any part of articles or indicia of this crime is found as a result of those search warrants, Kelly, that is going to be what will be the nail in the coffin on this case.
Really, really interesting. As always, Jennifer Coffendorfer, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Coffendorfer.
Kelly,
Coffendorfer's cool. I like her. I mean, I don't know. I usually don't watch anything that she ever does, but she was good there. I liked what she said. Let me see. Nice, Ray. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat. I really appreciate that. If BK can't afford an attorney, how in the world is the family going to come up with the bond money? My opinion, I don't think there will be. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a bond either. You can't put this guy back out on the street. You just can't. Not with the allegations and everything against them. Let's see. You just can't. You really can't. I mean, why would you? Why would you do that, And I also found that News Nation's got some really cool stuff, and God bless them. They don't strike us. So I appreciate that, News Nation.
Well, let's welcome now Tracy Walder, former CIA officer and FBI agent. Tracy, thank you for being.
That's because Brian Kohberger, like, everybody's just like fascinated, and it's weird. Some people think that they own the story, like some news stations, and I understand them putting the clips and stuff together and everything. It totally makes sense, but like, this story is really for everybody.
Being here.
Thank you for having me, Kelly.
It's great to have you, as always. So since the release of that probable cause affidavit, a lot more details have emerged. Robert outlined some of them. So many of us are still wondering, though, what was the motivation behind these murders? Do you see a possible narrative emerging from some of these newly released details?
I think that's the part that really scares everyone is the motive, right? And I think really to the point of Kaylee's father, when he spoke out talking about how he expected him to look different, right? It's this whole idea of the devil you know, right? Versus the devil you don't know. And he doesn't look like someone who would do this, but what are you supposed to look like? And I think that's what's scary about the motive is why these students, why did he do this to them? And my guess, the narrative that I'm just, pulling together based on my own hypotheses is that I do think he came into sort of random contact with one of them. I'm still not certain who. I believe it's Maddie or Kaylee. But I think that contact, he perhaps made more out of that contact than they did, because we have that Uber driver talking about how Kaylee and Maddie really didn't seem like they had a care in the world that evening. And I fully believe that. And so I think this would have been a situation where he would have come into very casual contact, either at a restaurant, at a bar, library, store, wherever. And he made more out of that contact. And then he began to.
Oh man, I am getting like, I should start doing emails of shame. You should see some of the things some people say, and it's unbelievable. Alicia, I agree with you there a lot. I mean, people are brutal and ruthless and just piles of steamy dog crap that eventually turn into just compost. It's so odd, and like it's the people that have the most effed up lives you've ever seen, and I think I'm allowed to say that. I don't know.
Basically stalk them.
Wow, fascinating. So the suspect, Brian Kohberger, has not yet entered a plea.
I don't know, Cherry and Max. I know you've been around a long time. It just says that.
Defense received the judge's approval to preserve the crime scene for several more weeks. What is the defense doing now to help build their case?
So I believe that the defense is probably recreating the crime scene. They are examining now this themselves, because law enforcement has really had it right for these 2 months, and they've been able to comb through it. And so basically what law enforcement is trying to do is, based on the information that was in that probable cause affidavit, they are now recreating those events and trying to figure out the holes that they can poke into their theories, and whether or not Kohberger was actually capable of doing something like this, and whether or not the witness testimony that they have is actually.
She seems awful young to have like this big of a resume. That's very impressive.
Reliable.
That makes sense. So one of the two surviving roommates, saw the alleged killer.
I mean, is that what we're really dealing with here? Like a woman hater? Or, I mean, is it beyond? Because I know some women haters, not like, well, but like, famous ones, like people on the internet who get turned off all the time. One of them just got arrested for sex trafficking. There's a difference between, I think, that, which is just as bad as anything, and this. It's crazy.
Walking out of the house that night. How important do you think she'll be to this case going forward?
So that's actually an excellent question. And I don't know is the answer to that, because my gut says that she saw him. I don't believe that he saw her.
Right.
And I do believe, look, I was a college student. I was 20 years old once. And at 4 o'clock in the morning.
So that's kind of what I was thinking too. Like, I think that she was terrified and trying to be quiet, and she didn't know what was going on. And by the way, if you've ever been in like a really bad situation, first of all, you don't want it to be real. You're just like, please don't let this be real. Please don't let this be real. And scared to go check because she doesn't know where that guy went. She doesn't know who that person walking around in the house, where he went, what he's still doing, what he did do. She doesn't know that. She doesn't know. And everybody's so mean about it. Yeah, I think so too, Bambi. Cherry and Max didn't get to say Merry Christmas. Love you, Josh. Thank you, Cherry and Max. I really appreciate that. And I love that you had a monkey at one point in your life. That's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
morning when you came in at 2:00 in the morning, she may have been under the influence. She may have.
Which, by the way, so here's the other thing. People will want to. I don't know how old this girl is, and I don't care. Okay, but if they're like, she was drinking and she shouldn't have been drinking, and blah, blah, and I'm just going, read the room. You're an idiot. Don't even go that route. I don't know how old she is. I don't care. I really don't. That's the least of what the worries in this situation. Don't do it, because it's just it's a bad look. I'm telling you.
Been sort of in a dreamlike state, so I don't know how reliable.
Like you'll say, here's the thing: you'll say this stuff. Here, hey, listen to me, folks. To the ones that say this stuff, you'll say this out loud. You'll type it in the chat. Blah blah blah. You'll do all that, right? People are looking at you. They're going, dude. So like probably, I don't know, 3 out of 10. Here's my percentages again. Think this way, and the other 7 are going. Send those people over to Lobotomy Island.
Her testimony is actually going to be for either side. So that's actually the kind of wild card right now, because really all she saw was someone that resembled him with the bushy eyebrows, and the defense can go ahead and say, okay, well, you just saw someone who resembled him, not him. But the prosecution could say, well, this person looked very much like Brian Kohberger, and then, they've matched the shoes to him. If they found his mask, if they found his murder suit, then that would corroborate that testimony.
All right, Tracy Walder, always fascinating.
And by the way, I have noticed a direct correlation in between people who have mercy and understanding as being the more intelligent of people, and then the people that are just, I need to know. I'm not saying if you ask the question you're bad, but the way that people are asking and assuming, those are the people that I'm talking about. Those are the people that need to stop. I get it, but you can ask questions, whatever.
Thank you so much for your.
Nobody's casting aspersions because you ask questions. Nobody is doing that, nor should they. But come on. It gets to be a little much. Not that people care. Not that people care because, bloodlust. It's really weird. It's this like phenomenon now, like this true crime, forensic files. Everybody knows everything, but yet nobody's an investigator. But they want to tell people how they should do their job, which is just like the best to me. I love when I say I loathe, but I think it's hilarious when somebody tries to tell somebody else how to do their job when that person's never been trained to do a job at all. I mean, we have a few of those around here, around the way, You know it. I know it. We all know it. I'm not gonna say any JLR blow arm Betty. Okay, moving on. Sorry. That was uncalled for. I shouldn't have done that. Did we just do why did he do this? Yes, we did. Okay, let's check it.
Here's the
Oh, did anybody see when Chris Cuomo, called Brian Enton Bud? He's like, hey, Bud. I used to hate that. Tiger. How you doing, champion? All right, there's a couple more things that I want to listen to, and then we can discuss.
The house in Moscow was once a single crime scene that seemed a Herculean task to process. It has now evolved to forensic investigations in 2 additional states, the processing of a car, and so much more happening behind the scenes. We asked News Nation's Robert Sherman to look into all of the components of forensics and the judicial process that have to go right to actually win a conviction. It's such an important part of all of this. And Robert joins us now from the crime scene in Moscow tonight. Robert.
Good evening to you, Brian. And the goal for law enforcement at this point can be summed up in 2 words: investigation, perfection.
The 4 were stabbed with a knife, but no weapon has been located at this time.
From forensics in Idaho to pre-dawn capture in Pennsylvania.
It was on the door. Force was used for evening search warrants.
Police, prosecutors, and the courts working hard to bring their A game.
And you don't want the slightest thing to happen.
Retired FBI agent Kathy Geider isn't surprised to see top-notch investigative techniques like 3D imaging used.
That's what I'm saying. Like this whole investigation, it seems like they have tons and tons and tons of evidence, but people get off on technicalities, and that's the one thing that they don't want to happen. They want to be able to nail this one down.
In the processing of the King Road murder scene, and crime tech spending more than 12 hours at Brian Kohberger's Pullman, Washington apartment, carting off a computer tower and more, also a routine part of a well-executed law enforcement script.
Every location that comes up, now you have more evidence teams out there, whether it's digital evidence, communication being part of that, whether it's fingerprints, shoe prints, all the different technologies out there. Very, very time consuming.
The investigation, evidence processing, even search warrants and Miranda rights must be perfect or the defense can pounce.
The one thing that I'm not seeing in this arrest affidavit is a motive for this crime.
You don't, but here's the thing. You don't have to have a motive.
Mr. Kohberger know these victims?
I'm sure it helps. I'm sure.
If not, the defense is really going to be drilling in on that.
Federal criminal defense attorney Tama Cudman looked over the gag order now covering the case.
Tama Cudman.
It's an extensive one, she says, and necessary for both the defense and the prosecution.
To the extent that any information is being leaked into the jury, they may be tainted. And if you want to have a fair trial, we have to protect them from these kinds of leaks.
What might seem like missteps, like the beginning of hazardous material cleaning of the house that abruptly stopped.
But the sheeting has come down.
We'll get scrutiny for potentially damaging Kohberger's due process.
Could be for the defense counsel, could be that they just want to hold it for a little bit.
We call that spoliation of the evidence in criminal defense lingo, and that is going to most certainly be an issue.
A new crime scene
Is it though? Is it going to be an issue?
Experts spent most of Tuesday in and out of the home. Hired by the defense, this forensic specialist is carrying 3D imaging technology, also used by detectives. He also specializes in crime scene reconstructions and blood pattern analysis, his career splitting nearly equal time testifying for and against criminal suspects.
That's interesting.
Reporting.
How y'all doing today?
The 2 Indiana traffic stops of suspect Kohberger and his dad are of little surprise to retired Agent Geider.
You've got the people that are going to, look just at the linguistics of what did he say, why did he say it at that particular time. You are combing every part of that vehicle, seats, under the seats, the floor mats, every little piece is being evaluated for the potential evidence.
A former member of an FBI mobile surveillance team, she notes the deputy's talkative verification.
I mean, I think that motive would be he's a murdering bastard. Like that's, to me, that's a motive.
Of who's behind the wheel, but it's
I guess it's important to know, like, to gain information so that in the future that you can sort of not track people down, but have something to go off of. I completely understand that. But like what they'll do is if like they look at his brain, they'll be like, look at this like really dark gray spot that in the front of that right there in that huge gray spot that's the size of Mars. That's where your impulse control is. He doesn't have that.
the car and what it might hold that is just as intriguing.
I would caution everyone. Most certainly we have enough information and evidence for probable cause to arrest, but that does not mean that we have enough evidence for proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
Well, I would say this: if I was law enforcement, well, not law enforcement, if I was the prosecuting attorney, first of all, I'd let the physical evidence really speak for itself. But then I would hit it with, look at all the crap he did to evade and elude the police, investigators, cleaning, taking out trash with gloves on, turning off his cell phone, so on and so forth. That, my friends, is evidence that will be introduced into a court of law. You can bet your bottom dollar on it. Circumstantial evidence along with physical evidence. You're loving life if you're a prosecutor. Now, if you're truly just going on circumstantial evidence, that can be tough too. But here's the thing. People get convicted on circumstantial evidence most of the time. Most of the time, there isn't DNA. There isn't fingerprint. You get lucky to get one of those things. They have tons of stuff. Tons.
Everything has to be meticulous from this point on.
A swirl of DNA evidence, digital data, and investigative procedure that must be spot on so that justice can be served for 4 young lives.
This whole community and nation was desperate for speedy answers, and at times it seemed as though this case might never be solved. But we now know less than 2 weeks after those murders took place, Moscow police was asking other law enforcement agencies to be on the lookout for that white Hyundai Elantra. A cautious investigation yielding this arrest, Brian.
I mean, I wouldn't call it cautious. I mean, I think it was balls to the wall. They were just quiet. Cautious. Brian, who is this guy? And why are you hosting this?
Thank you.
Get back in the car.
Robert, we are staying centered on the victims and their families as we continue with this special live from Moscow, Idaho.
God dang it, Brian.
Welcome back. We are live tonight in Moscow, Idaho. For 47 days, police were tight-lipped about what happened inside this house, giving basically no information about a suspect or even a person of interest.
Right.
But what we didn't know was that they had someone in their sights nearly the entire time.
I mean, they didn't tell us that, but a lot of people believed it, including me. And I also did a video like an hour before he got arrested and said, I think an arrest is coming soon. So, but I didn't say it was Brian Kohberger because I didn't know who it was. Never even heard of the guy before. Nor did I think it was Jack or any of the ex-boyfriends. That would have been solved fast, if you ask me. That would have been a faster investigation. I don't know how fast, but
in Kohberger,
faster
criminology student in neighboring Pullman, Washington. And as we dig into what we know about him, some of the pieces to this puzzle start to come together even more.
Do they, though?
Sucker-muckagus. Detectives arrested 28-year-old Brian Christopher Kohberger in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, on a warrant for murders of Ethan, Zana, Madison, and Kaylee.
Brian Kohberger, a criminology student, now one of America's most notorious inmates. He grew up in Pennsylvania. He attended high school in the area near the Poconos Mountains. A former friend telling News Nation's Chris Cuomo that Brian was bullied as a teen.
What's up? Like the music. I mean, I like to put music in my stuff too, but like it's too loud. I don't know what to tell you, Brian.
He was always good to me. Now,
and to me, the music's inappropriate. It's like a Beethoven or something.
over the years that has changed. I know going into his senior year, he lost a lot of weight. It was then I hear that he might have become the bully.
She also claims Brian had a drug problem.
And you had experience with him using you to try to get drugs, right?
Yes, he did use me, and I didn't know at the time that he was using me to drive him to get heroin until probably a couple of days afterwards.
An old running...
she just laid it all out there for you.
Partner says when he heard about the arrest, he was shocked.
I looked at the picture and I couldn't believe who it was. It was Brian Kohberger. I would text him like, hey, you want to go for a run? We go for 6-7 mile runs at night.
6 or 7.
Brian Kohberger.
Kohberger got his bachelor's degree here at DeSales University back in...
Dude, look at when he takes the diploma. It's weird.
Kohberger got his bachelor's degree here at DeSales University back in 2020 and then a master's degree from their criminal justice program. A spokeswoman for the school says they are absolutely distraught by what is happening. Sure. Something really interesting. There is a world-renowned forensic psychology professor who works here who reportedly actually taught Kohberger.
Joining me tonight is Dr. Catherine Ramsland. She is the forensic psychologist.
Dr. Catherine Ramsland, professor, consultant, and most famous for her in-depth interviews with Dennis Rader, known as the BTK killer.
He asked me to...
They said that this lady, that this professor that taught him, has written over 100 books, and you can bet that she's going to write a book about this as well. But I was thinking 100 books. 100 books. That is a Herculean accomplishment. But I also wonder, has she ever had a thought in her mind that she didn't write down and publish?
Solve a series of codes, and I was willing to pass the test.
Dr. Ramsland wrote his autobiography, and she talked about it on News Nation last year with Marnie Hughes.
He obviously liked the attention and the publicity then, and perhaps he still does now. Why give him a voice and a platform to share his thoughts and experiences?
I did this project because I wanted to benefit law enforcement, criminal justice, and psychology, and we want to learn about the early red flags in the life of someone like this who doesn't have the typical serial killer background.
Dr. Ramsland tells us she's not making any comments about Kohberger or the case at this time.
My first reaction was just like my stomach churned.
But Dennis Rader's daughter, telling News Nation, the revelation concerned her.
Do you think he may have had any sort of communication with your father?
Knowing how personally connected Ramsland is to my father, I would not be surprised if Kohberger had at least tried to write my father.
Kohberger also worked part-time as security at his old high school. After getting his master's, he moved to Pullman, becoming a PhD candidate and teaching assistant at Washington State University, just across the border from Idaho. He lived in an on-campus apartment. The affidavit...
Enton is just killing me with the music.
David for arrest claims Kohberger applied for an internship with the Pullman Police Department in 2022, saying in his essay he was interested in assisting rural law enforcement agencies with how to better collect and analyze technological data in public safety operations. He also posted...
Who writes? 100 books? Like, I thought... Writing one book first of all, writing one book sounds just absolutely awful. I would hate to write a book, but, 100?
Posted a survey on Reddit asking for volunteers for a research study where he was studying the criminal mind. He wanted to know about the emotional and psychological considerations for people who had been convicted of crimes, asking questions like, why did you choose that victim? What was the first move they made? How did you leave?
He had to make absolutely sure you understood that he was small.
A former classmate giving insight into Kohberger's demeanor right before winter break.
I did notice that he became a little chattier. He became a little more animated. Mostly what I noticed, though, is he was always sewing up a little.
Like, whoever edited this, you put the music at like 17%. They got this thing cranked to like 70. 70% music, 100 on the audio. You're killing me. killing me, Enton.
Late, and he was always showing up with a cup of coffee in hand. He seemed like he was more exhausted.
I mean, people drink coffee.
Kohberger has not entered his plea.
Vegan coffee. Is coffee vegan?
Yet. The father of victim Kaylee Gonzalez saying this about seeing the man accused of killing his daughter for the first time.
I expected him to be a bigger monster and more intimidating.
I mean, I'm like, this is the guy?
Sitting in the county jail, according to the sheriff, they're trying to accommodate his vegan diet. The reporter who interviewed Kohberger's aunt telling News Nation's Ashley Banfield about Kohberger's so-called food fetish.
She said it went beyond being vegan.
I remember the forensic psychologist or whatever she was saying that he was trying to curb his animalistic, you know, like that he was trying not to be a cannibal. That's what she said.
Required his aunt and uncle to buy brand new pots and pans for him to eat out of because he refused to eat from anything that had meat ever cooked in it. And she said it seemed to be an OCD type of situation.
Kohberger's immediate family saying in a statement, "We will continue to let the legal process unfold, and as a family we will love and support our son and brother. We have fully cooperated with law enforcement agencies in an attempt to seek the truth and promote his presumption of innocence rather than judge unknown facts and make erroneous assumptions." For Kaylee's family, they say they now have a clear picture of what justice.
LJ says that he is getting his vegan diet in jail. From what I understand, that they're not going out of their way to give him. They're just giving him crap that's in the kitchen, like peanut butter and jelly, maybe some vegetables and maybe some snap peas with a little salt and pepper. I don't know. Vegans normally don't eat out of anything that meat touched. That's not really weird. Well, I'll tell you what is weird. Demanding that somebody buy new pots and pans. You don't want to eat out of them, fine, but like he's demanding, that's weird. That's a very freak, selfish, crybaby ass, poopy butt thing to do. I don't know why that pisses me off, but it does. Because like if he would have said that, hey, can we get some new pots and pans? I would have probably hit him with one.
Justice doesn't have.
Even if he wanted to go buy new pans himself, I'd have told him to get bent.
A room where you can read books and you can go to school and you can have 3 meals and you can have your vegan diet. To me, that's not justice. Justice is when you leave the planet and the whole world is able to rejoice and be glad that you are not there.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television.
Somebody just said that their daughter's vegan. 1 second here.
Here's the fact.
Okay, calm down, buddy. Let me see here. Demanding the aunt get new pots. Yeah, that's just like freak behavior. You know what I'm saying? Like that's too much. But like he doesn't care because he's a jerk. I hate him just for that. I really do. Like you guys can't understand. I'm telling you the truth. I hate this. I hate that story. It pisses me off. And the fact that they did it pisses me off too. A lot of things piss me off. I should probably just stop getting so pissed off at people. Oh man, look at this guy.
If we're going to cover this wall to wall, then let's be fair about this.
Dude, I think that was it Casey Anthony or Scott Peterson. This guy is an absolute douche nozzle.
A probable cause warrant or affidavit for a warrant that is uncross-examined, that has got holes that you could drive a Mack truck through, and I've listened to 20 minutes assuming that this is the guy. And, There's a reason that in England they have the Contempt of Court Act, because when they bring over tabloidization over here, Fox News and Murdoch and everybody else, at least in England, when the person is accused and is starting the proceedings, they shut down the media. And there's a good reason for that, because this has been absolutely incomprehensible to me. I mean, if you want to know the truth, Chris, the father of the poor woman who's dead had more reserve, had more kind of
Reasonable Doubt podcast. So, look, defense attorneys, you know, the world, I guess, needs them. But like these guys like make a living off of this crap, and they're not even really like believing that somebody's guilty, or they're not even believing that they're innocent. They're just like, how can we get them off and make money at doing it?
Passion. And
that's a little bit different to me than, you know, being just a defense attorney. Like they specialize in high profile whatever
and understanding of the system than what I'm watching. It's really disturbing.
What is disturbing you exactly? What is?
I'm telling you, I think Chris Cuomo's kind of hot. Man, this is awkward.
Different.
What's disturbing?
I don't think he's hot, but he's a very handsome man. Crazy, but
I know how you would.
Brother, not so much. Governor Nipple Rings.
Defend him, Mark, but hold on. First of all, you know, tone is not always the same thing as tenacity. What I'm saying is, given the strength of the affidavit that they put forward, you think that there's any reasonable basis to question this arrest?
No, but I think there's a reasonable
let's start with that,
because
that's the same place I am. Could he beat the case?
No, because listen to what you said. Listen to what you said.
Please.
If there's probable cause, that's not guilt.
I didn't say it was.
Probable cause. Well, I invite you to roll back the tape and take a listen, because I sat and listened intently.
I think you listened for what you wanted to hear, which was the disposition of a criminal defense attorney and how they feel about what's being put out there. And I respect your emotion.
That's actually...
Cuomo, to me, is... Like he's relatively smart.
That's actually an argument. That's a fallacy. That's an ad hominem to say criminal defense attorney, as if that diminishes the point. The point is when you say, I'm just making a point. If you want to hear it or not,
please go ahead.
No, we don't want to hear it.
You say, this is the guy, what do you want to have happen to him, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That assumes exactly a prejudgment of guilt.
Hey, thank you for watching.
A lot of people don't like Cuomo. Must be a CNN thing. Like, I'm just saying, I don't like care about the guy like that. And there's a lot of anti-Cuomo in the crowd. Why is that? Okay, so was this the one way the evidence contained? All right, so this isn't Cuomo, but let's just listen to this. Well, it is. It's his segment.
We have the basis of the arrest in the murder of 4 students at the
Nobody
University
freak out. He's just the host of the show.
Of Idaho. Do we see enough in the charging document to arrest? I say yes. To convict? High-profile trial attorney Mark Geragos.
No, Mark Geragos is obnoxious.
Representing potential defense. Former prosecutor, retired FBI profiler, representing prosecution, Jim Clemente.
I don't even care about it being political.
Jim, good to have you. Mark, thank you.
Thanks, Terry K. I appreciate you pointing that out.
Let's do point counterpoint. Jim, what you see in here.
He's hosting a show. Like, it's just, come on.
How far down the road does it get you to believe that this is the guy?
Well, it gets me very far down the road. First of all, Chris, as you know, this is a probable cause affidavit.
Isn't this the guy that said that Burke Ramsey was guilty? Is this him? This the guy on that one? And then they got sued for a bunch of money by Burke.
Mm-hmm. And they don't have to lay out their whole case here. They just have to make up probable cause. 51% that there was a crime that was committed and this defendant actually was involved in the crime. Mm-hmm. So it's also not the end of the investigation. It will continue. But I think, obviously, the DNA evidence is extremely strong, and coupled with the other sort of circumstantial type evidence that they have listed in this affidavit, it certainly points to one person, and that person is in custody right now.
Mark Garagos says no because...
Well, first of all, the only thing I disagree with is 51%. My line nowadays is probable cause is my client breathing? The idea that the DNA...
So stupid.
The idea...
That is such an a-hole, like, joke. And then Cuomo's...
that the DNA is coming in, I think there's...
Yeah, they're just picking your clients up off the street, you pile.
It's going to be a battle, because you've... in fact, if you...
Button your shirt up, too.
...would ask this question of Cece, I think she would agree that, look, what they found was a suspect profile on the sheath. We don't know where the sheath was.
All I said was he was good looking, which was totally dumb to say. I was kind of kidding. I'm not saying I'm a huge fan of Cuomo. Let's calm down.
We don't know how it got there, but we do have a profile. They then went and they rummaged through the trash. They found some DNA. They then, and I would take one issue with you, Chris, I do not think that the way you phrased it is what happened, because what they did is they went to a specific database that the FBI uses, and that FBI database is very skewed. The reason for that is it's not one of these 23andMe's. It's not a genealogy database. It's not what a one-to-one comparison. What they're doing right now is, I'm sure when he was taken into the jail yesterday, they already had a court order that he had to get swabbed for DNA. They're now doing a one-to-one comparison.
What happened to chat? Nothing there that I miss a change. I don't think so. Anybody else? Can anybody else see the chat? Go out and come back in. Make sure you come back in, though. That's important.
That's the money shot for DNA. It is not this comparison between
the money shot, like how super classy, buddy. The money shot.
What was found in the trash in Pennsylvania and what was found in the scene in Idaho. Then you've got kind of a third component here, which is they went to a very lengthy analysis of the cell phone. Now, what people have to understand is the cell phone is not like GPS. Cell phone is when you use your phone, it hits a cell phone tower. But you can bounce between towers within 30 seconds. I've had murder cases where somebody has bounced between a cell phone 25 miles away within the span of 15 seconds. And add this one little fun fact, the phone did not hit anywhere near the crime scene location for the 2 hours surrounding the crime. What does that mean? Well, the police speculate he was in airplane mode. The defense will argue, hey, wait a second,
Look at the prosecutor guy. His eyes gotten lazier as he's listening to this dumb. No offense.
Using the cell phone triangulation.
I have a lazy eye too.
With the towers.
It's usually when I'm drinking milk. That's when my eye goes lazy.
To say this and to say that, and he was over here, but at the critical time, he wasn't at the cell phone wasn't there. You combine that with also one other fact that I think the defense will focus on. The first time they showed the video car shot of the Elantra, the FBI said, I believe it was 2011 through 2014. Well, guess what? The FBI changed their opinion once they found out that this young man, the suspect who's now the accused, had a 2015 Elantra. So there's going to be a lot of hay made over that as well.
Jim, is this potato? Is this spreading doubt? Or do they have real problems with the evidence they have and the circumstances they're conducting?
Mr. Garagos is doing exactly what his job is, which is to very vehemently defend a client who's being charged with something. But I will say that the scientist and the science behind this, when they do match his DNA with the DNA that was found at the crime scene, I think that will be an extremely important piece of evidence, solid physical and scientific evidence. And the rest, yes, people are going to be arguing about the ambiguities of cell phone evidence. But what it did, it also talks about his behavior. If he turned off his phone or turned it into airplane mode for exactly the time that it would have taken for him to go, do a pre-attack surveillance, commit the crimes, and come back, and then turned it back on. That's actually circumstantial evidence that can help convict him.
Absolutely. And that's what we're talking about here tonight. Guilty behavior. This is guilty behavior by the suspect. So it's not only that they're accusing him of doing it, but how many of you out there have thrown your trash in the neighbor's trash while wearing gloves, or clean your car in the middle of the night, or so on and so forth? And, you know, they're probably going to find some stuff in that car, even if he did clean it. I mean, he's legitimately, I was like, dude, this guy's got a plan. He knows what he's doing. And then the probable cause affidavit came out. I go, oh my God, he's an idiot.
Hey, thank you for watching.
He's also, I know he's also an idiot, but like, it's just, I am just blown away by this whole thing. So much circumstantial evidence. Lila Hayes, what do you mean not you? And also, yeah, I mean, he didn't do it. It was bad. Who's a clown? Are you talking about who are you talking about? Smart idiot. Yeah, he's good at grading papers. I like how they were saying like, oh, he's such he's a tough grader. Well, trust me, he's like tough on himself too. He hates himself, which he should, because he sucks. Yeah, who knows what LE has? I know that. I'm sure that there's more that, but
Here's the fact.
More. All right. But the guilty behavior to me is just as important. Turning off your phone, turning it back on, taking a different route, so on and so forth. It's like, obviously he's doing stupid. He's taking stupid measures. The fact that the FBI was watching him do this too is totally fascinating. Oh, okay. Did he defend OJ? Did he really? Okay, so was he a part of? Can somebody tell me if he was a part of not OJ, but Casey Anthony or Scott Peterson? I thought maybe he was just weighing in. I've seen this guy when him and Nancy Grace go at it. Like I've thought about. I was like, let me listen to this, and then I was like, maybe I should hit myself in the head with a hammer, because this is crazy. This is nuts. And yeah, I'm pretty sure he was on OJ's defense. Let's see. This is a good question here. Hold on. Oh, okay. So maybe he just weighed in on it. Can we talk about the DNA match? Was his dad's DNA? Okay, so that's a really interesting question, and let me play you something that I watched the other day that I found particularly interesting. I wasn't planning on playing this, but I'm going to, because I thought it was a good segment. Of course, I can't find it. Dun, 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 dun. It was kind of comparing him to the Golden State Killer. Oh, here it is. Here it is.
Welcome back from...
Nobody say a bad word about Angela. Only I can do that. I don't mind it.
A cell phone data trail to the multiple sightings of a white Hyundai Elantra to the sheath of a still missing knife that's believed to be the murder weapon. If Brian Kohberger is in fact the killer, he seems to have given police pretty much a roadmap right to his front door.
Yeah.
And this is a man who was working towards a PhD in criminology. Again, if he's guilty,
he's a dummy.
What happened? Was he blinded by passion or frightened out of his wits? Or
no, he's a
did
dummy.
He want to get caught?
No, he didn't want to get caught. He's a dummy.
I'm joined now by someone who...
He didn't want to get caught. He was taking the trash out with gloves on. He didn't want to get caught. Yeah, he wanted to get caught.
He's tackled these questions before in actually thousands of other cases, from Lacey Peterson to J.C. Dugard, but...
Did he want to get caught? Oh, he scrubbed his car in the middle of the night for nothing.
Paul Holes is...
Paul Holes.
Most famous.
Slobberknocker and Paul Holes.
Is the former cold case investigator who helped take down the Golden State Killer after decades on the loose. He is the author of the memoir Unmasked. Paul, I thought of you right away. We expected so little evidence in this affidavit, and it was a cascade of, frankly, mystery upon mystery, and yet we do have what we have.
Paul Holes.
And what we have is that there was a bolo, a be on the lookout for a white Elantra on November 25th. And I think it was the 29th that they knew that he had one. And
Banfield, can we let Holes talk, please?
They had his license with a description of him. They had so much so early. They had DNA on the, the snap of the knife sheath that day. I don't understand how it takes so long. I don't know your business, investigators, but help me.
There's no helping you, Angela. What do you mean? Why does it take so long? One time she was talking. I heard her talking about this case, and she was like, "I hope that the FBI knows how to do like forensic cell phone data. I hope that they know how to do that." And you're just going, "Oh my God."
Well, you have to understand that the affidavit is really a retrospective, and so the detective who's writing it is writing.
Paul Holes, retired cold case investigator. The name's Holes. Paul Holes.
In chronological order on when information came in. But when you start talking about this bolo for the white Hyundai Elantra, you have to understand that when they are initially investigated, they don't even have a license plate for this Elantra. So when they are now gathering...
Well, the name's Holes. Paul Holes. ...data, going to the state's DMV and reaching out to other law enforcement agencies and their databases, they're getting thousands of bits of information of different registered owners of white Hyundai Elantras. Now, maybe Brian Kohberger's name was in that list, but they didn't know that he was the killer at that point in time. At the same time, you have this parallel process going on with the lab processing evidence, and it takes time. Now, they shockingly had this knife sheath that was left behind that ultimately had Kohberger's DNA on it, which is just, for me, it's just crazy that they had. The crappy part about Kohberger's name is that, like, it's like Bundy and Dahmer, McVeigh, Elliot Rogers, Harris and Klebold, and now you have Kohberger. I like holes. I like potholes. Somebody said potholes. Anyone can go into your trash and get your DNA if they want to pay for it. You can't like walk up on somebody's property and open their trash can, but when they put it out towards the road, you certainly can. Back to you, Holes.
Great evidence, but it takes time to go through to process not only the DNA from this sheath, but they have mountains of other evidence in the case that the lab is probably working in batches. So it probably took some time, 7 days, 10 days before they get their initial DNA results back. So they are juggling multiple things that take time. And ultimately, the stars aligned. The DNA added up. They had a suspect who had a white Hyundai Elantra. And then as they dug further, circumstantial evidence really cemented the case.
Good night.
So that it's fascinating. I'm looking at this timeline, and I've picked it all apart and made crazy notes looking through the affidavit. But November 29th, a Washington State University police officer gets an Elantra and takes it right to Kohberger's apartment. He sees that there's this Elantra. The Bolo's been out for 5 days, or 4 days, and he sees this one at Kohberger's apartment. So he can read the plate, and he says it's a Pennsylvania plate. If you were to look at that plate, you got a stop on August 21st where there is body cam video with a guy with bushy eyebrows. And we know from day one that Dylan Mortensen said the guy in my house that night had bushy eyebrows. Then you get a second body cam, and that's on October 14th.
So, like, I'm all like the bushy eyebrows thing. I understand. I mean, you're gonna need a little bit more than that, but I mean, he fits the general description. His car's in the area. He turned his cell phone off. He took a weird route home. He wore gloves to take the trash out, threw it in his neighbor's trash.
And that one was also, this one was also Washington State University officers, and there is body cam, presumably to show bushy eyebrows. So you have 2 videos there, plus a license, a driver's license.
So, according to Banfield here, she thinks that the reason that they stopped him was to get a picture of his eyebrows.
That gives a description exactly of the person that Dylan Mortensen described to the police. But then it looks like they didn't ask for the phone records, the historical phone records of this suspect, because he'd given his phone number during one of those traffic stops, right? He gave them his phone number during the August 21st. They didn't start looking for historics on that until December 23rd. That to me is a bit of a surprise.
Well, and again, I think this is where, the confusion comes in as you have this Washington State University cop who sees this white Hyundai Elantra. But this is one of many tips that law enforcement is fielding at the time. So until they have something that causes them to focus on Kohberger,
make sure to hit the thumbs up, please, as well.
Sort through
I really
all
appreciate
of these
when you guys
tips.
do that. I know most of you
just
have.
because you have footage showing that you have a male that has bushy eyebrows, that isn't going to be sufficient to cause law enforcement to disregard all the other tips. This is where I believe that there's a likelihood that they had other more advanced DNA technology.
Like he does legitimately have bushy eyebrows, but here's the thing. So did the dad from American Pie.
That was utilized that helped them focus in on Kohberger. And then once they focused in based on that kind of technology, now they started adding things up. Oh, he drives a white Elantra. Now you get the body cam footage. Now you get the cell phone records, and the circumstantial case starts to cement itself.
Did you have a bit of a flashback to the Golden State Killer?
Here is where this is what I think is extremely interesting about this, because this is the guy that helped put the Golden State Killer away. Rolled him right into a cell while he was in his wheelchair. He became wheelchair bound really fast after he got arrested for doing all that nasty stuff that he did.
Got to say, I heard in this affidavit that Brian Kohberger applied for an internship at the Pullman, Washington Police Department just in the fall, just a couple months ago. So presumably it is sometime around the murder, right? The murder on November 13th, and sometime in the fall he's applying to be an intern with the cops, and the Golden State Killer is, of course, a cop, and of course the familial DNA that you worked to find him. Did you have that flashback?
No, absolutely. There are parallels here with Kohberger and D'Angelo. D'Angelo went to school and got his degree in criminal justice. He became an intern at Roseville PD, and then ultimately was a cop while he's committing fetish burgs and numerous sexual assaults in Northern California. Here, Kohberger's doing.
So think about that. So you got D'Angelo or whatever his name is. And then you got Kohberger, Paul Holes, if you don't know who that is, right? A criminal justice major becomes an intern as a police officer, then becomes a police officer, and then, wreaks havoc from the inside. Now you have Kohberger, who applied to be an intern and probably would have gotten it because of his education. Was that where he was headed, to be a police officer?
The same thing. In addition, look at the crime that Kohberger has been accused of. It's going into a residence at a time when the occupants are likely going to be asleep or falling asleep, and then killing them. That's exactly what the Golden State Killer was doing. I would not be surprised if Kohberger actually studied D'Angelo and the Golden State Killer case.
That is so creepy.
I don't know if he studied it. But
So I got to ask you something, because you told me something off air.
Maybe he did.
That just shocked me. I only have a minute left. But when homicide detectives process the body, you said that they sometimes do not look for places where a sex fetish killer will mouth, and they won't think it's a sex crime. What did you mean by that?
Well, what I've seen across the nation, and even in California and jurisdictions next to mine, is when crime scenes are processed and the victims' bodies are processed, they often limit themselves from a sexual assault evidence standpoint to just collecting the 3 orifice swabs, oral, vaginal, rectal. And then if those are negative for just semen, and a pathologist says, I see no injuries to these orifices, they say, well, there's no evidence of sexual assault. But they often don't swab types of evidence that you can't see, such as saliva around the victim's mouth, in their hair, on their neck, on the intimate areas of their body, even down onto their toes or feet, where we sometimes get offender DNA and saliva. So this evidence is often overlooked. I don't know what they did in this case. Maybe they did a great job processing these victims' bodies. However, it wouldn't surprise me that due to the nature of Kohberger's background and the types of victims he's going after, that there's a possibility that there's a sexual component to this crime that was missed.
It is so fascinating. You have got to come back. We have a much longer conversation to have about this, because they said originally no evidence of a sex crime, but I promise you'll come back.
I will be back.
That exchange at the end was odd, to say the least. I will come back. I will come back. Okay, well, thanks, Paul Holes. I like Paul Holes. He did great. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of curious. That is, to me, that's pretty interesting. But, could it be coincidence? Yeah, of course. It's not like it wouldn't be the first time somebody went into law enforcement to be able to break the law and use their position of power or whatever, you want to call it. And so that's kind of what it seems like he was planning on doing. I find it really odd, though, that he wanted to be an intern at a police station. Now here's going to be the big question. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, he's too arrogant for this. He's too cocky for that. And I understand all that. But if they present enough evidence to the lawyers of Brian Kohberger, is there a chance that he takes a deal to save his life so he can shove vegan burgers up his butt for the rest of his life? Because the major problem with this is that I think even if he gets the death penalty, that he'll never be executed. I hate to think that way, but there's nothing to me that indicates that Idaho or many other states besides Texas and maybe Louisiana and Oklahoma put old Sparky to good use. It is becoming more and more rare. So, Scott Peterson, is just like, and it's, let me see, here we go. Yeah, the Bryans are the worst, aren't they? Between Brian Laundrie and Brian Kohberger, the name Brian is not going to be popular baby names this year. Brian, Ryan, Chad, Brad, Thad. And I've known a Thad. Dude, I knew a Thad, and like Thad would come to the park to play basketball with us. Thad, because we needed another player, so we needed it was 3-on-3, but you want it 4-on-4 so you can play full court. And like Thad, like nobody really liked him because of his name, not just his name, but he was just a Thad. This guy would show up in like ankle high Chuck Taylors with the front, like where the toes are. He would cut the toes out because he said it gave him more flexibility. Thad. Yeah, I know. Trust me. Thad. Oh, I miss Thad. Bundy was in law school. That's true. He was. That is very true. Thad. Who does that? I guess that's a Thad. That's a Thad move. I'm trying to think. Did we miss anything here? Has Idaho struck before? No, I think. What do we got? We got a newbie? What happened? Do we got a newbie in the house? If you're a new subscriber here, let me know. I love that. I don't think you're a newbie, Natalia. Are you? Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Never heard that name before. Is it short for Thaddeus? I don't know. We didn't go into the origins of his name. I'm wondering if we know the same Thad. Yeah, probably. I don't know. I don't know if he wore Vans, but they said that they had a shoe print, which is interesting. I had a friend name their son Thaddeus, nicknamed Teddy. No, that won't cause issues later in life at all. Color of your cap is fire. Thank you. Thank you, Amy. Appreciate that. Yeah, Thad. Hey, Thad, we got new. Welcome. Love the new. So that's the thing in the comments. And I'm really trying to get the comments more popping, and I'm trying to, and I want to, be more cognizant of the chat, not just the chat, but the comments and stuff, and engaging. So make sure when this is over, go ahead and leave a comment, please. Teddy, not Thad. Okay, well, Thad. The Thad I knew was obnoxious. Yeah, me too. I think it's hard to find a Thad that isn't obnoxious, right? Like Thads are like Thads. I would yeet a Thad any day of the week. Absolutely. Oh my God. You guys are funny. You really are. Like some of the funniest. We got some really funny people here. Not your host, that's for sure. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna let.
Well, that was not the right button. Hey, Peyton, what is it? JD page 3 in red, and it seems like you switched them on me, which made me look like a jerk and dumber than I am, because I am pretty dumb. Thank you for being here.
There is no investigation. This boy has.
There is not, really? This to me.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
But I have to put her on the side and worry about
I'm gonna do what I gotta do for me and my boys and my kids.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
There is no investigation. This boy has.
There is not, really? This to me. Rise, idiot.
I've done my best. It's hard, that's real tough.
But I have to put her on the side and worry about the boys.
I'm gonna do what I gotta do for me and my boys and my kids.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
Live from the NBD Production Studios, you're in the lab with your host, Joshua Diaz.
There is no investigation. This boy has.
There is not, really? This to me. But I have to put her on the side and worry about the boys. But I have to.
There is no investigation.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
But I have to put her. But I have to put her on the side and worry about the boys.
Josh Birnbaum, step on up. Get on the scale, son. All right. Get off the scale.
I could go into heavy detail, and I will. And I will go into heavy detail.
Suckamuckagus. Rhinoceros.
Come here, I'm gonna eat you. I'm bigger than you, I'm higher in the food chain. Get in my belly.